Hi Internet viewers, this is Frank Rauscher again. We're off and running on the Cardinal. We are going to start painting it, but I want to give you some other tips on preparation of the painting. I had asked you before to sand the beak because we put the super glue on there and it penetrates in, and when you get done it gives you that bony look, and you want to sand that down. And then after you're done, we want to go in with the rotary brush or even a toothbrush and dust it all out, so you get all the dust out and everything else and all over. And then when you're done, then what I want you to do is use krylon spray. This is krylon, and the number on it is 51301. It's a clear. It's classified as gloss, but it's penetrates into the wood. So what happens is I spray this probably about 6 inches away. I usually hold the tail on one end and I spray it about 6 inches away, and I spray the whole thing. Then I come around and I do the tail as well and get the whole thing. It looks like it's wet, and then I let it sit and let it dry for maybe a half hour or hour and really let it dry out real good. Once you do that, then we're back at it again. You did put like a coating on the beak because it's got a super coat on super glue, I'll get it right, on there already. So what you want to do is come in and sand out the beak. So what it does is it allows the paint we're going to put on here next, it'll won't beat up on it, and you can get a consistent coating over the beak, because we're going to prime the bird. And what I mean by that is we have a lot of darks up here, texturing and everything else. And like I said before, I've seen it where students just left it this way. In fact, they've burnt the breast in, similar to what we did the mantle here, and then left it because they just thought it looked really good. So that's things you have as an option for you if you want something that looks different, but it's appealing as well. So what I'm doing here is I'm going to, after I seal it, which I've done, and I use the krylon spray. Again, it's 51301 is the number, and it's a clear. And what it literally does, it saturates into this. Because I use acrylic paint, the paint. And in using that, I use it with water, and I make washes, and then we coat this. If you didn't seal it, the possibility is that some of this detail we have on here would swell up and you would lose some of it. In the case of the burned area, you may have it happen in the breast area. The burned area is pretty much sealed somewhat, but I use the whole thing. I do it on the whole thing. And then using the acrylic paint with the water, which I'll show you, we get the water on there as part of the wash, and you could lose some of your detail. It swells up, so that's why we seal it. And years ago, we used to use an oil-based white and paint it. And sometimes we actually stuck it in a bucket and then came out and then brushed it out so we get all the paint out, because you want to prime it white. But because we do a lot more detailing, and back then we didn't burn as much as So we were looking for a smoother looking bird at the time. This has a lot of detail to it and makes it look very realistic. So I'm going to turn the camera down and then we'll start mixing paints and I'll show you how to do that and how I proceed on. But what we're going to do is just not only seal it with the spray, but we're going to put a white coat. So we have a base coat so that when we put color on, it'll hold that and be a true color with some of this ghosting through where we have the feathering. And I'll show you that too. So bear with me and we'll move the camera down. Okay, we're back again. What I'm going to start doing is I usually use these small trays. You can get these almost anywhere in an art supply house or whatever, and they're ideal. You can wash these out after you use the acrylics because they're water-based. I use Liquitex for for my painting, period. But in the case of the undercoat, years ago, we used to use a gesso, but it was so heavy of a consistency, I didn't care for it. So what I ended up doing is I use the Liquitex titanium white, and what I do is I water this down, and I'll show you how to do that. And then this allows me, say, after I get this on and I get the painting on, with the gesso, if I ever wanted to come back and highlight some of the dark areas of a bird because it called for it, I could use the burning pen at a lower temperature and come in and texture and get some shadowing in. If I use gesso, it would peel up and show the underneath side. So what I'm going to do, and this is what I like to do, I don't always burn afterwards, but in some cases I do that. And the titanium white allows me to go back in and texture some shadowing in for the feathering if you wanted to, but you couldn't do that with gesso. So try to keep your piece clean so you don't get a lot of dust on it, which I just did for a second. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get about, we'll say a pea size of the white, okay? Right out of the tube. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add water to the point of about 3/4 of a cup, okay? And then what I'm going to do is mix this really good. You want to get that really mixed up so that all the paint has been dissolved into the water. And you can see it, it's still chunky, so you got to massage it somewhat. And if you want to, you can leave a little bit of the heaviness in there, and then where you may need to coat it a little bit more, or if it sticks on your brush like that and not really mix, I'm going to show you. I'm going to start from the head so I can hold the tail, and I'm going to brush on the white paint just like this. Now I'm trying to coat what I have on the bird and not coat, take it to the point I overwork it, because when you keep on stroking over an area, I know you got to get into the nooks and crannies of all the detailing we have, but you want to sort of go in one direction when you do it, because the paint, the brush actually acts like a sponge and can pick up as much as it puts down if you keep on working the area. So lay it on and let that just set in there, and then work another area. Stir your paint up each time before you use it, so you have a nice mix in there. And not everything's going to come out white yet. That's just not going to happen. And I want it that way too. I'm going to look for some ghosting where this pattern work on the breast area is showing. So I'll show you how to do that too. But you'll see sometimes the paint is reluctant to want to do, go into some areas. So what I'm doing is I stop it, because I could see I'm overworking an area. I just leave it alone and let that sort of settle in. And then what I do is I just keep on going. You got plenty to add the white to it. And now I don't go with a real heavy mix. I probably could go with a little heavier mix and it goes a little faster, as you can see at times when I charge it up, but I try not to, because I want to get some ghosting in here. And what I mean is this, the burning pattern that we put in there originally, especially on the mantle, I would like to see that come through a little bit. Other than that, all this other stuff can be painted almost white, but if you notice, as it dries, you're going to see it'll lose the white, and you have to maybe do 2 or 3 coats of this. So I'm going to show you the 1 coat and then have you continue on with at least 2 coats. And I'm going to show you what I mean by ghosting. Just trying to give us a nice even white coat, and where it doesn't want to take some time, I'll flood the area a little bit more with the white in hopes that it gets into all the nooks and crannies, because sometimes you got to sort of scrub it in because it doesn't want to grab into everything. But I need to get that white throughout. And if you notice, I'm trying to move in one direction and spread the paint out instead of just taking a glob of it and just throw it down there. I keep moving it so that it gives it a nice even coat. And you're not going to get an even coat on the first go around here. That's a given. So I'm going to at least leave you going with 1 coat, and I'll show you. After that, I usually use a hair dryer to come in and seal the bird with the undercoat here. So, and sometimes it's going to look whiter, and then you're going to notice that it loses because it's not a solid white. It'll fade, and that's typical. And that's good too. I prefer it that way, but a lot of people want to get done fast, and I don't think fast is always the name of getting a nice finish. So I try to keep it controlled by just doing so much. Now, some people have a device that screws into here and it holds it for you so that you can paint the tail both top and bottom. I'm going to try to get around that a little bit, but that's sometimes you start ending up doing finger painting. You start getting your hands painted by holding this, but there is a device out there It's for starting screws. When you're screwing something in, you want to get a pilot hole. It looks like a screwdriver with a threaded end, and that's ideal for holding the bird. I don't know if I have one. Yes, I do. Let me grab this. This here is the device I'm talking about. This is put out by Stanley, and what it is, it's a screwdriver handle, and it looks like it has a screw on the end of it. And what you do, and maybe I should do this, I'm going to approximate where one of the feet will go in here. I'm going to do this quick and dirty. I know this should have been done before I started this, but what you do is you just wind it into there. Sure I am. Of course it ain't going to do it. There we go. What it does, you're just sending like a screw into it. Now, instead of getting this on your hands, you now have something you can paint the whole thing with, which I should have shown you right from the get-go. So, bear with me here.